A scorching hot day, a simple trip to the store, and one unexpected moment that changes everything. A fearless young girl stands up for what's right, but sometimes doing the right thing comes at a price. When danger lurks just around the corner, who will step in when it matters most? Stay tuned to witness an unforgettable showdown that will leave you speechless. Like this video and subscribe for more incredible stories of justice. Let us know in the comments, what would you do in this situation? The scorching afternoon sun blazed over the city as John Cena and Dwayne Johnson walked toward the entrance of the shopping center. The heat was relentless, beads of sweat forming on their brows after an intense workout session. They needed something cold, fast. As they stepped inside, the wave of cool air from the air conditioning was a welcome relief. Cena let out a satisfied sigh, rolling his shoulders. "Man, I needed that," he muttered. "Yeah, but let's hurry up. I need something ice cold," Dwayne replied, heading straight for the refrigerators at the back of the store. Before they could reach the drinks, a sharp voice cut through the air. "Sir, put that back." Cena and Dwayne exchanged glances before turning toward the sound. A few aisles away, a young black girl with a cast on her arm stood defiantly in front of a tall, muscular man in a black leather jacket. His bald head gleamed under the fluorescent lights, and his arms were covered in tattoos. He was holding a golden bracelet encrusted with diamonds. The girl's voice rang out again, unwavering despite the size difference. "You tried to steal that. I saw you put it under your jacket and head for the exit." The biker's expression darkened as he turned to fully face the girl. His lips curled into an ugly sneer. "What did you just say, you little brat?" His voice was low and dangerous. "I saw you," she repeated, standing her ground. "You were about to walk out with it." A few customers nearby had stopped to watch. The cashier had frozen in place, her eyes darting between the two. A man near the snack aisle slowly pulled out his phone and started recording. The biker's face twisted in anger. "Oh, so now you're the law? Listen here, you little—" He took a threatening step forward. Cena and Dwayne moved immediately, but before they could reach them, the biker suddenly laughed. "You know, I was going to buy this, but now I'm thinking I should teach you some respect first." He crouched down slightly so that his face was closer to hers, his voice turning into a venomous whisper. "You think you can run that mouth just 'cause someone let you into this store? Newsflash, kid, you ain't got the right to talk to me like that." The girl didn't flinch. "You stole it." The biker's nostrils flared, his patience snapped. He raised his hand. "I should knock some sense into—" John Cena slammed into him before his hand could come down. The force sent the biker stumbling backward, crashing onto the tile floor with a grunt. All eyes turned toward Cena, who stood over him, fists clenched. "You serious?" Cena growled. "Trying to hit a kid?" The biker scrambled up, his face flushed with fury. "The hell do you think you're doing, punk?" Before he could step forward, Dwayne Johnson moved beside Cena. His towering presence alone was enough to make most people think twice. "Walk away," Dwayne said coldly, "before you regret it." The biker looked around. The cameras, the customers watching, the phone recording everything. His jaw clenched. "Damn right I was gonna buy it," he spat, tossing the bracelet onto the counter. He turned back to the girl, his eyes burning with hatred. "This ain't over, you little—" Cena grabbed him by the front of his jacket and shoved him toward the exit. "Get lost." Security finally arrived, stepping in as the biker stumbled out of the store, muttering curses under his breath. But before he disappeared through the doors, he turned back one last time. "We'll meet again," he snarled, locking eyes with the girl. She didn't even blink. As soon as he was gone, the tension lifted. The customers started murmuring, a few whispering words of praise for Cena and Dwayne. The girl let out a breath and turned toward them. "Thanks," she said, a small but confident smile on her face. Dwayne knelt slightly to meet her eyes. "You okay?" She nodded. "Yeah, I've had worse." Cena looked at her cast. "That how you got that?" "Oh, this? Nah," she grinned. "I broke it playing basketball. I slipped, fell, and landed wrong, but it doesn't hurt anymore." Dwayne raised an impressed eyebrow. "Tough kid," Cena smirked. "I like that." The cashier finally spoke up, clearing her throat nervously. Thank you. I should have done something sooner." Cena waved it off. "It's handled." Dwayne glanced down at the girl again. "You need someone to walk you home." She shook her head. "I live close. I just wanted a soda. It's crazy hot out today." Cena chuckled. "That's why we came in, too." The girl gave them a little nod, then grabbed a bottle of cold soda from the fridge. She turned back to them one last time. "You guys are cool," she said. Then, with a confident stride, she headed toward the checkout. Cena and Dwayne watched as she left, but something about the biker's last words stuck in Cena's mind. Dwayne noticed his expression and sighed. "You think he's stupid enough to actually try something again?" Cena exhaled through his nose. "Guys like that, they don't let things go." Dwayne's expression hardened. They might not have been done with him yet. Amara stepped out of the store, the bottle of cold soda in her good hand, and took a deep breath. The heat outside was still unbearable, but the tension from the store had faded. She knew she had done the right thing. That biker had tried to steal, and she had called him out. Simple as that. Her house wasn't far, just a 10-minute walk past a few intersections and a small park. She had walked this route countless times, and despite what had just happened, she wasn't scared. She had stood up to that biker, and he had been kicked out like the trash he was. As she walked, she took a sip from her soda, savoring the icy relief. The streets were quiet, the occasional passing car the only movement. She turned a corner and continued down the sidewalk, her sneakers making soft scuffing noises against the pavement. A strange feeling crept into her chest. It wasn't fear, not yet, but something felt off, like she was being watched. She glanced over her shoulder. Nothing. The sidewalk was empty. A couple of houses down, an older man watered his lawn, completely unaware of anything out of the ordinary. She shook off the feeling and kept walking. Maybe she was just tense after the incident in the store. A low, distant rumbling caught her attention. The faint sound of an engine. It wasn't loud, more like a soft hum in the background, but something about it made her uneasy. She quickened her pace. Her house was only a few blocks away now. She could already see the park at the end of the street. The engine noise grew louder. Amara's grip on her soda tightened as she looked back again. A motorcycle cruised slowly around the corner behind her. The rider wore a black helmet, his face obscured. Her heartbeat sped up, but she forced herself to stay calm. It could be anyone. People rode motorcycles all the time. Then a second bike appeared behind the first, and a third. A cold chill ran down her spine. They weren't speeding toward her, but their slow, deliberate pace sent a clear message. They were following her. She swallowed hard and turned forward, walking faster. She was close now, just past the park, and she would be home. She forced herself not to run. Running would only make it worse. The motorcycles didn't pass her. They stayed behind, matching her pace. Her breath quickened. She reached the edge of the park, her house just down the next street. She was almost there, and then 4 figures stepped out from behind the trees. She froze. The men stood in the grass, blocking her path. Leather jackets, heavy boots, familiar sneers, and at the front, staring at her with a look of pure hatred, was him, the biker from the store. Amara's stomach dropped. She had been so focused on the motorcycles behind her, she hadn't realized they had set her up. He grinned, cracking his knuckles. "Told you we'd meet again, didn't I?" Her mind screamed for her to run, but her feet refused to move. The engines behind her rumbled louder. She glanced back. The bikes had stopped, the riders getting off. She was surrounded. The biker took a step closer. "Not so tough now, huh?" Her fists clenched. She wouldn't beg, she wouldn't cry. "You brought friends," she said, forcing her voice to stay steady. "What? Too scared to face me alone?" The other bikers chuckled. One of them, a lanky man with a jagged scar on his cheek, smirked. "This little brat's got a mouth on her." Another, stocky and broad, cracked his neck. "Maybe we should help her shut it." Amara's pulse pounded in her ears, but she kept her face blank. The leader's smile turned sharp. "See, I don't like being embarrassed, kid. And you embarrassed me real bad today." Amara took a slow step back. "Oh no, don't run," the biker warned, wagging a finger. "We just want to have a little talk." She didn't believe that for a second. Her house was right there, just beyond the park. If she could break past them. The leader suddenly lunged forward and grabbed her injured arm. A sharp, searing pain shot through her cast as his fingers squeezed. She screamed. "Where's that attitude now?" he growled. Amara gasped, blinking back the hot sting of tears. She refused to let them see her cry. The pain was unbearable. "Let me go," she gritted out. He twisted her arm slightly, making her whimper. "Oh, I don't think so. See, I like watching you squirm." The other bikers laughed, and then a voice boomed across the park. "Hey, scumbags!" The bikers whirled around. Standing at the edge of the sidewalk, their towering figures unmistakable, were John Cena and Dwayne Johnson. Cena took a step forward, rolling his shoulders, his fists already clenched. Dwayne's face was pure fury. 4 grown men against 1 little girl, Cena said, his voice low and dangerous. "Guess that makes you the toughest guys in town." Amara sagged in relief, ignoring the pain in her arm. The leader's grip loosened as he took a step back, his cocky smirk faltering. "This ain't your business, big guy." Dwayne tilted his head. "Oh, but it is." The scarred biker spat on the ground. "What, you two think you can take all of us?" Cena let out a slow, amused breath. Then he smiled. "That's exactly what we think." The stocky biker pulled out a chain, wrapping it around his knuckles. Another reached into his pocket, flipping open a switchblade. The leader sneered. "You're outnumbered." Dwayne cracked his knuckles. "You sure about that?" Amara, clutching her aching arm, took a step back. The air went still. Then the bikers charged. The moment the bikers charged, John Cena and Dwayne Johnson moved like a storm breaking loose. The first man lunged at Cena, swinging his chain-covered fist, but Cena sidestepped with lightning-fast reflexes. Before the biker could recover, Cena grabbed him by the wrist and yanked him forward, sending a crushing knee straight into his gut. The impact was brutal. The biker gasped, folding in half before Cena slammed him onto the ground with a forceful shoulder toss. Dwayne was already dealing with his own opponent. The stocky biker with the knife swung wildly, aiming for his ribs, but Dwayne dodged and caught the man's wrist mid-swing. The biker barely had time to react before Dwayne's other fist came down like a hammer on his forearm. A sickening crack sounded, and the knife clattered to the ground. The biker let out a pained yell, stumbling backward, But Dwayne didn't let up. He drove a powerful elbow into the man's jaw, sending him sprawling into the grass. The leader of the bikers, the same man who had attacked Amara, stood frozen for half a second before his expression twisted into pure rage. He grabbed Amara by the collar, using her as a shield. "Back off!" he roared, dragging her closer. "Or I swear I'll—" He never finished. Cena exploded into action, covering the distance in a blink. His massive arm wrapped around the biker's, twisting it away from Amara. The biker's grip instantly broke, and Amara staggered free, stumbling backward. Before he could react, Cena lifted him off the ground and slammed him onto the pavement with a brutal spinebuster. The ground seemed to shake from the impact. Dwayne turned just in time to see the last biker, the lanky one with the scar, sprinting toward him with a rusty crowbar in hand. The weapon swung in a vicious arc toward his head, but Dwayne ducked just in time. The momentum threw the biker off balance, giving Dwayne the perfect opening. With a smirk, he planted his foot forward and delivered a thunderous right hook. The biker's head snapped to the side, his body going limp before he collapsed like a sack of bricks. The crowbar fell from his hands, clinking uselessly against the pavement. In less than a minute, all 4 bikers were on the ground, groaning in pain. Cena turned to Amara, his brows furrowed. "You okay?" She nodded, cradling her injured arm but still standing tall. "Yeah, I think so." Dwayne rolled his shoulders, stepping over the unconscious biker at his feet. That was almost too easy. But the leader, still coughing from the brutal slam, suddenly let out a low chuckle. He wiped blood from his lip and grinned up at them through his pain. "You idiots! Think this is over?" he wheezed. Cena narrowed his eyes. "You still want more?" But then, sirens. A wave of blue and red lights filled the night as police cruisers skidded into the park, tires screeching. The neighbors had clearly heard the commotion and someone had called the cops. Officers jumped out of their cars, weapons drawn. "Freeze! Hands up!" Cena and Dwayne instantly raised their hands, stepping back from the fallen bikers. Amara did the same, though she still clutched her injured arm. The officers moved quickly. They pinned the groaning bikers to the ground, slapping handcuffs onto them. "Jesus," one of the officers muttered, looking at the unconscious men. "Looks like someone already did our job for us." Another officer walked up to Cena and Dwayne, recognizing them almost immediately. "You two want to tell me what happened here?" Dwayne nodded toward Amara. "They attacked her. We stepped in." The officer's gaze flickered to the bikers, then to the terrified but resilient girl. "That true, kid?" Amara lifted her chin, her voice steady. "They tried to hurt me. They were waiting for me outside my house." The officer's expression darkened. He turned toward his squad, motioning for backup. "Get them out of here." As the officers hauled the bikers toward the cruisers, the leader snarled at Amara one last time. "You got lucky," he hissed. She didn't even blink. "No, you got caught." The biker was shoved into the back of a police car, the door slamming shut behind him. Cena placed a hand on Amara's shoulder. "You sure you're okay?" She nodded, wincing slightly as she moved her injured arm. One of the officers returned, his demeanor much calmer now. "She should get that looked at," he said, motioning to her cast. Dwayne crossed his arms. "We'll make sure she does." The officer hesitated, then nodded. "And thanks for whatever it is you did here." Cena smirked. "No problem." As the police cars pulled away, taking the bikers with them, the park finally fell silent. The night air was still warm, but it no longer felt suffocating. Amara let out a deep breath. "Well, that was intense." Dwayne chuckled. "That's one way to put it." Cena gave her a look. You're one tough kid." She grinned. "So, I've been told." Dwayne tilted his head. "Want us to walk you home?" She shook her head. "Nah, I live right there." She pointed toward her house, just a few yards away. "I think I'll be fine now." Cena nodded approvingly. "Good, but if anyone ever messes with you again—" Amara smirked. "I'll handle it." Dwayne and Cena exchanged amused glances before Cena extended his fist. "Respect." She fist-bumped him, then did the same with Dwayne. They watched as she turned and walked toward her house, shoulders squared, head held high. Dwayne exhaled. "She's gonna be just fine." Cena smirked. "Yeah, but something tells me those bikers won't be." They both laughed as they turned back toward the city, the night finally calm once more. Amara stood on the sidewalk, watching as the last of the police cruisers disappeared down the street, their flashing lights fading into the distance. The park was quiet again, the warm night air still carrying the tension of what had just happened. Her heart was still pounding from the fight, but she wasn't afraid anymore. The bikers were gone, arrested, and she had made it out in one piece. She turned back toward her house. It was only a few steps away, but she took her time. Her arm still throbbed from where the biker had grabbed her cast, but she ignored it. She had dealt with worse. Right now, all she wanted was to get inside, grab another cold drink, and let the whole thing settle in her mind. She stepped onto her front lawn, feeling the cool grass beneath her sneakers. A quiet sigh escaped her lips. It was over. A sudden rustling noise behind her made her stop. Her muscles tensed as she turned. From the shadows near the sidewalk, two figures stepped out. Her stomach dropped. One of them was him. The leader of the bikers, the one she had embarrassed in the store, the one who had just been dragged away in cuffs. But now he stood there, eyes burning with pure hatred, his lips curled in a snarl. And he wasn't alone. 3 more bikers stood with him, different from the ones Cena and Dwayne had taken down. Bigger, rougher. Their leather jackets were covered in patches, their faces hard and unreadable. Amara's throat went dry. How was this possible? How had he gotten out so fast? He must have seen the question in her eyes because he sneered. "Did you really think I'd let the cops decide how this ends?" Her feet refused to move. He took a step forward. "You humiliated me. Got my guys arrested. And for what? Because you didn't know when to shut your mouth?" The largest of the new bikers, a towering man with a thick beard and a jagged scar down his temple, cracked his knuckles. "She's the reason our boys are in lockup?" His voice was deep, slow, and dangerous. The leader didn't take his eyes off Amara. "She's the reason I had to call them." The bearded man's expression darkened. "Then we'll deal with her." Amara's heartbeat roared in her ears. She took a step back, but the bikers closed in, blocking every possible escape. She tried to keep her voice steady. 4 grown men against 1 kid? You guys really that pathetic?" The bearded man smirked. "Gotta teach you a lesson, little girl." The leader lunged forward and grabbed her arm again, squeezing over the cast. A sharp wave of pain shot through her, and this time she couldn't stop the gasp that escaped her lips. "Where's that attitude now?" he hissed. A car drove by on the street. She wanted to scream for help, but the biker pulled her closer, keeping her hidden in the shadows of the trees. Her stomach clenched. This was bad. And then, a voice like thunder shattered the night. "Hey, get your hands off her!" The bikers whirled around. Standing at the end of the sidewalk, eyes burning with fury, was John Cena. And next to him, just as furious, was Dwayne Johnson. The leader cursed under his breath. "You've got to be kidding me." Cena took a step forward, rolling his shoulders. Didn't get enough of a beating the first time? The bearded biker chuckled, stepping forward. You think you two can take all of us? Dwayne scoffed. That's exactly what we think. The bikers hesitated. Then, almost at the same time, they charged. The first biker went for Cena, swinging a wild punch. Cena caught his wrist midair, twisted it behind his back, and slammed him face first into the mailbox beside the sidewalk. The metal dented on impact, and the biker collapsed, unconscious. Dwayne didn't wait. The second biker tried to grab him from behind, but Dwayne flipped him over his shoulder like a rag doll. The biker hit the pavement hard, groaning in pain. The bearded man was faster, throwing a brutal kick at Cena's ribs. Cena absorbed the hit and responded with a devastating uppercut, sending the man staggering backward. Before he could recover, Cena wrapped his arms around him and lifted him into the air. Amara couldn't believe her eyes. Cena had the biker above his head. With one fluid motion, he slammed him onto the lawn, the ground shaken from the impact. The last biker, the leader, tried to run. Dwayne saw it immediately. He took 2 massive strides and grabbed him by the back of his jacket, yanking him back. The leader stumbled, but before he could react, Dwayne spun him around and delivered a brutal clothesline. The biker flipped in the air before crashing down onto the pavement. Silence. All 4 bikers were on the ground, either unconscious or groaning in pain. Cena exhaled, shaking out his fists. Not much of a lesson, huh? Dwayne cracked his neck. Guess they don't learn. Amara stood frozen, staring at the chaos around her. Then, just as before, police sirens. Cena let out a low chuckle. They're gonna love explaining this. The cruisers pulled up fast, tires screeching. Officers jumped out, weapons drawn, on the ground, hands behind your heads. The bikers didn't resist. They were in no condition to. One of the officers walked up to Cena and Dwayne, eyes flickering between them and the unconscious men. Let me guess, they started it. Cena smirked. You're catching on. Dwayne nudged Amara gently. You okay? She took a deep breath, then nodded. Yeah. Another officer walked up, shaking his head as the bikers were cuffed and dragged to the cruisers. This time, they're not getting out, he said firmly. Amara locked eyes with the leader as he was shoved into the car. His glare had lost its fire. She gave him a small, satisfied smile. Told you got caught. The door slammed shut. Cena and Dwayne watched the last of the police lights disappear down the road. The night was quiet again. Dwayne let out a breath. Now it's over. Cena glanced at Amara. You want to get that arm checked out? She flexed her fingers, winced slightly, then grinned. Nah, I think I'm good. Dwayne chuckled. Toughest kid I've met. Cena extended a fist. Respect. Amara fist-bumped both of them, standing tall. You guys are all right, she said. Then she turned and headed toward her house, shoulders squared, head high. They watched her go. Dwayne crossed his arms. She's gonna be just fine. Cena smirked. Yeah, and something tells me those guys won't be trying anything again. They both laughed as they turned back toward the city, the night finally calm once more. Amara stood at her doorstep watching as John Cena and Dwayne Johnson disappeared down the street. The air was finally still, the echoes of police sirens fading into the night. For the first time since she had left the store earlier that evening, she felt a deep sense of relief. It was really over. The bikers were gone, taken away in cuffs where they belonged, and she was still standing. She stepped inside her house, closing the door behind her with a quiet click. The dim light in the hallway cast long shadows as she made her way to the kitchen. The adrenaline was still rushing through her veins, making her hands tremble slightly as she reached for a glass. She filled it with water and took a long, slow sip, letting the coolness calm her nerves. As she set the glass down, she finally exhaled. She had faced off against a gang of grown men twice in one night. And she had won. Not alone, of course. She had Cena and Dwayne to thank for stepping in, but she had never backed down. Not in the store, not when they surrounded her outside her house, and not when the leader had grabbed her again. A small smile tugged at her lips. She hadn't let them scare her. She walked over to the small mirror hanging in the hallway and glanced at her reflection. Her face was smudged with a little dirt, and there was a faint red mark on her wrist from where the biker had grabbed her arm. But her eyes were steady, strong. She didn't look like a victim. She looked like someone who had stood her ground. The house was quiet, the neighborhood calm. It felt surreal how quickly things had shifted back to normal. Only hours ago, she had been walking home with nothing but a soda, completely unaware of what was about to happen. And now, here she was, having lived through one of the craziest nights of her life. She turned on the kitchen faucet and splashed some cold water on her face, shaking off the lingering tension. Her arm still ached from where the biker had squeezed over her cast, but the pain felt distant, unimportant. It would heal. She thought back to the moment she had stood up to that biker in the store. The way he had looked at her like he thought she was nothing. The way he had laughed at her, mocked her, tried to intimidate her. And yet, in the end, he had been the one dragged away by the cops. That thought made her grin. She knew that guys like him always thought they were untouchable, that they could do whatever they wanted, take whatever they wanted, and no one would stop them. But she had stopped him. She had done something. She hadn't looked away. She hadn't pretended she didn't see. She had spoken up, and that was what had made all the difference. She grabbed a towel, dried her face, and took a deep breath. The night was over, and tomorrow the sun would rise again. She had school, basketball practice, just another normal day. But she would wake up knowing something she hadn't realized before. She was strong, she was brave, and she wasn't afraid. Somewhere in the city, John Cena and Dwayne Johnson were probably already back to their regular lives, maybe even joking about the fight they had just been in. But for Amara, this night would stay with her, not because of the fear, not because of the danger, but because she had learned something powerful. Courage wasn't about being the strongest person in the room. It wasn't about never being afraid. It was about standing up for what was right, even when no one else would. And she had done exactly that. With one last glance at the quiet street outside her window, she smiled to herself. Then she turned off the lights and went to bed. Justice has been served, but one question remains. What does it truly mean to be strong? Sometimes real strength isn't about power or size, but about standing up for what's right, no matter the odds. This was more than just a fight. It was a lesson in courage. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more powerful stories. What do you think was the most intense moment? Let's talk in the comments.